Hey, look, and that's the beauty of it. Hello, smilers, campers, amazing human beings, and LinkedIn unicorns. How are we on this wonderful What's Up Wednesday? Now, Shorty, he keeps changing his appearance. He's not here again this week. He's away with the family, and do you know what? Important things are the most important thing in your life, so you do the most important things first, which is for him, his family, which is awesome, and I love that. So we have an amazing guest tonight, somebody that I've recently connected with, but I tell you what, is an amazing human being, and I'm so grateful to have her here today. Marg, how are you?
I am fabulous, Scott. I am so happy to be here. I'm sorry Shorty's not here, but if it means I am, then sorry, Shorty. Bye.
Oh, seriously, I'm going to get the replay of that and just run it over and over and over. Now, there's a little bit of backstory about how we met because it's been a great connection very quickly. And it's something I'm very proud of because the other day I presented at the Frankston Business Collective's Wellbeing Summit, a bit of a surprise pop up. And I did a presentation. And for those that know about the business of smiles, you know about the socks. The socks are something that are very, very important to us. You can see it down the bottom here. And when we gift those socks, it's from the heart and it's with purpose. So I did that. Marg stood up and presented with the socks on. And if you want to get into my heart, the quickest way to do that is to put a pair of socks on. And oh my God, you just filled my heart. So, one from me to you, thank you so much for getting into my heart so quickly, but acknowledging what we do and the story that was told. So, from my heart to yours, thank you so much for supporting me and what we do in an instant.
You are most well. Look, truth be told, thank you, because that was the longest time I'd spent wearing a pair of heels in a couple of years, and my feet were freaking killing me, dude. So the fact that I could take off my heels and stand in front of this room full of people in socks was like heaven to me. But no, seriously, I mean, but that was part of it because I'm like, man, if I could wear these. Part of that, it was important for me to do that because I wanted to show my support and solidarity because your story just touched me. And I think it touched every single person in the room. And it was immediately like, how do I know more about this man? How do I know more about what he's doing? And he's gifted me this fabulous pair of socks, and I just had to wear them. The other reason that I wanted to wear them as well was I felt like it was a really good some really good synergy with my own story, which was why I walked up to the front wearing your socks and carrying my heels in my hand, and I put them off to the side, which was I've put aside that was the old version of Margaret when she was in the corporate world, and I could now turn up and stand in front of a group of people in a pair of socks, and my story was no less impactful. What I was there to share with them had no less meaning because I wasn't wearing a pair of stilettos, which is what the corporate world has always told women that you needed to wear. So, and you know what? I wear them often. I went to put them on tonight, and then I discovered they're in the wash because I wear them so often, and I love showing people. See my socks? I wear them to women's circles. I wear them all sorts of places.
And thank you for that because for me it was a big statement of I am me, unashamedly me, walking up with your high heels and putting it to the side. Like apart from the support, it was a really special moment because so often in life, when we're presenting, we're doing things, we're trying to put on a show for what it is we do instead of just being authentically ourselves. And you are unashamedly you. And I love that. And thank you for being that.
I've spent my entire life being versions of myself to please everybody else and versions of myself to fit in and be accepted and be loved and be who I thought I needed to be in order to be okay in the world. So when I found myself, dressing up to come to this event and speak, and I fell back into that expectation of how I needed to look. And then you gave me a reason to just go and be me. Because the thing, that I love working with people is going, you know what? When you know you are freaking awesome. just as you are. And the
Yeah.
freedom and the lightness and the pure joy that comes when you are just unashamedly yourself. Like, I just get off on that stuff. I get off on being Marg. And I just want everybody else to just figure out who they are, find themselves inside because they're in there, and just bounce around the world with a big smile on their face being themselves.
And I love that because it's very much what I preach, right? It's
Mhm.
I want to know you, but if you know you more than anyone else does and you can own your story, then you can sit with others in comfort because you're not having to project your story, or you're not having to gain come on, brain, kick in. So you don't need justification for things. So you're not trying to
Yeah.
get that justification. You're just sitting there being you. And
Yeah.
then you can take that authentic deep listening that comes from owning your story. And I love that. So stories are important. So let's start with yours, Marg. You grew up in Queensland?
I did. Oh wow. We'll go all the way back to the start. So
All
yes,
the
I
way
grew up in
back.
Queensland. I was actually born in Charleville, so far western Queensland, and I was given up for adoption at birth. My mother was a single young woman and not able to keep me, so she gave me up for adoption. So I spent the first almost 4 months of my life somewhere. Nobody's actually really sure where I spent the first few months of my life. And then eventually I was adopted by a family and raised in Brisbane. Grew up in Brizzy. I lived in Brizzy until I was 30. So I'm going to date myself now and say I'm 50. So a while ago I moved to Melbourne. But you know what? I had a fairly normal middle class upbringing. You know, I had a good education. I went to private schools, very Catholic family. And my parents did their best. But my life, I guess, was punctuated by a series of, capital T and little T traumas. So it's like my Siri on my thing is going off, and so I can't answer that for you. I'm like, that's okay, Siri, but thanks for listening. See these things? I was listening to me again. Oh my
I
God,
love
stop
it.
it. It's just freaky, right? Oh my God.
It happens all
So
the
anyway,
time.
yes. Yeah. But I guess the thing for me is, all the way when I was growing up, I've always been a deeply, deeply sensitive person. And, once upon a time, the world didn't understand things about, people who were empaths, or that your sensitivity was actually a superpower, not something, that you should be ashamed of. So growing up, I learned that I needed to be a different version of myself in order to feel loved and feel accepted. And I developed, as coping mechanisms for what was going on in my life, I developed different versions of myself. There was the Marg that I was with my friends, that I was at school, that I was at uni, that I was with my parents, that I was in different places. And I always had a quest to be perfect, because I believed if I could be perfect at everything, if I could be like this super achiever, then I would get the love and acceptance and approval that I had been seeking, during my life. I went to uni to be a high school English teacher. I loved English. I loved literature. I loved communication, semantics. I still love all that stuff. But I got 18 months into my degree and went, do you know what? Am I allowed to swear on this podcast, Scott? I got to ask.
Yeah, I'm not fussed.
Okay.
I'm not sensitive. It's after 8:30.
After 8:30, we're all good.
So,
Little ears, morning, boys and
if
girls.
everybody tunes out, then it's an issue, but that's all right.
So madly studying my degree, doing all the, the Englishy side of it, and realizing that at some point in the near future, I'm going to have to do the education bit to become a teacher. I went, do you know what? I fucking hate kids. I especially hate teenage kids.
There's a fair problem with teaching at that point.
There's a fair problem if you're a teacher and you actually really don't like kids all that much. So, and I'd only ever really considered being a teacher. So I just went, I'm not doing this. I dropped out of uni. I had zero clue what I wanted to do with my life. It didn't go down super well with the family, because that's what you were supposed to do. And here I was now with no idea of what I wanted to do. And I ended up getting a job with this wholesale manufacturing sort of textile business, and I literally made cups of tea for Mr. Sexton and Mr. Spooner. I still remember that Mr. Sexton would have a black tea with 4 sugars and 2 biscuits every morning for morning tea. So that was my job, was to make cups of tea. It was in the days almost before computers where you would still type. We didn't have the internet. So I'm so old, aren't I? But I learnt lots of things, and then I got opportunities in this business, and then I discovered that I was good with people, and I was good at communicating, and I was good at reading people, and that led me into a sales role. Now, nobody ever kind of, when they're at school, nobody ever goes, do you know what I want to be when I grow up? A salesperson.
Too true, eh?
Yeah. That's not on the career list typically.
I think Oscar's about the only person I know. He actually wants to be a buyer's advocate. So
he's a smart kid.
He's
a smart kid. Just get him to watch The Block. There's money in that.
Don't worry. Wait till you see him auction. He did an auction for our launch last year, and he nailed it. And we've got something coming up in the next couple of months that he will be the auctioneer again.
Brilliant. I love it.
I can't wait.
I love
it. So sorry to distract from where
That's
you're at.
okay. Look,
sales,
you know what? That first part of my life was of my adult life. It was pretty uneventful, to be honest.
Yeah.
There's an expectation that you're going to get a job. It's supposed to be go to school, go to uni, get a degree, get a job, get married, have kids, get another job, earn more money, live happily ever, go on holidays, live happily ever after. That's kind of what was supposed to happen. What ended up happening was go to school, go to uni, drop out of uni, get a pretty shitty job. I think my first job I was earning like $19,000 a year. And even way back when, that still wasn't a lot of money. I got married to a lovely guy. I'd actually known the family. His sister had been my best friend since the first day of high school. So I'd known this beautiful, beautiful family since I was 12 years old. Life was good. I had my first son. Then we moved to Melbourne. So I had job opportunity to move to Melbourne. So we were right, let's go down to Melbourne. My then husband had always wanted to move to Melbourne. He hated the Queensland heat. He loved Melbourne. We were like, well, you know what? Brisbane's basically a big country town. I was happy to get out of there. And move 2 states away, started a whole entire new life down here, had another baby. So my babies are now 17 and 19, so very grown-up babies. And then my marriage fell apart and ended, which, was not part of the plan. That wasn't, that's not on the success trail of, getting divorced. And then I got married again, not that long later. And sometimes when you look at people's resumes and they just have like this gap in their resume where they just like took a sabbatical, or you get a job and you do it for 6 months and it doesn't work out. So you just leave it off your resume altogether. So my second marriage is kind of like that. It was so short-lived and it was such a freaking disaster in every way, shape and form that I sometimes just choose to forget that it ever happened, to be honest. But I learned a lot about myself. And when I came out of that marriage and really reflected on what it was about me that had me making these decisions that I had been making about my worth in life, which was really what it all came down to, how I had been playing really small to keep other people happy, and how I was wearing these different versions of myself, I started to go, okay, well, what could we do? So I asked myself those questions and I really didn't do anything different with my life. I just went, okay, I asked myself some really good questions. And I posted some really inspirational shit on Facebook and thought that I was really getting my life together. So I've spent the last, 9 years as a single mum of my 2 kids, working in some pretty high stress jobs in the corporate world, most recently in software. That put me look, that made me a lot of money, and I met a lot of fabulous people. And for the most part, I absolutely enjoyed my time, and it was super challenging. And I realized where my creativity lay, and I realized what all of my strengths were. But I also ended up in hospital 3 times with burnout.
Mm.
And I realized that I had an overwhelming need for perfection that was killing me, quite literally. So I, after the 3rd trip to hospital, and my blood pressure was just like crazy. It was like 210 on 140. Yeah, it was not good. And I had all these other health issues that had been going on. Like for 6 months before this point, I'd been going to my doctor every other week and going, okay, now this is happening to me, or I've been having this for a couple of months, and she was sending me off for tests and ultrasounds and scans and all the rest of it. And everything was coming back fine. So the good news was I didn't have any form of cancer. I didn't have any form of disease, but I was as sick as a dog. Mm. And she just kept saying to me, it's stress. You're stressing yourself to an early grave. All you need to do is stop stressing. And I'm like, well, it's not that fucking easy, is it? Like, I'm not choosing to be stressed.
100%.
Yeah. And most people don't. I've yet to meet a person who goes, do you know what? I freaking love being stressed and anxious and depressed and sick. And having poor personal relationships and no time and no hobbies and no idea of who I am. Nobody wakes up in the morning and goes, that sounds like an awesome day. Let's go do that again.
I couldn't think of anything worse, to be honest. But once you've experienced it, you seem to keep going around the mouse wheel, don't you?
I did. I was on the friggin' hamster wheel, and it wasn't until the 3rd time. So the 3rd time, which was only in April of last year. So April of last year was my 3rd trip to hospital. And, so it feels like I'm having a heart attack. I can't breathe. My chest I'm in pain, like all sorts of, it's basically just a hyper anxiety attack that feels like a heart attack, and the doctors there, they did all the lovely things, and they literally sent me home with some Prozacs and told me to calm the hell down. That was paraphrasing slightly, but that was pretty much what they told me. And you know what? They were right. And then I did what I've always done. I take a week off work just to, unwind, because you can do that in a week apparently. And then I was just going to go right back to it. But in that week that I was off work, I got a phone call from a former colleague to let me know that another former colleague had died, and did I want to come to his funeral? Now, I hadn't seen this guy in many years. We were on Facebook together, etc. So I kept up with what was going on in each other's lives. And, he was relatively healthy. He probably, drank a little more than ideal and, smoked a little more than he should have, but he shouldn't have dropped dead of a heart attack at 51. Yeah. Mm. And here I was so far from fit and healthy. Like, if anybody should have been having the heart attack, it was me 3 days prior. Yeah. And I wasn't taking care of myself. I knew that I wasn't. And, it scared the shit out of me. I went to his funeral, and I sat there, and I only knew one other person at the funeral, who was the colleague that had let me know. But I sat there and I watched his children and his friends and his mother and his family just distraught that they had lost this person in their life. And I literally sat there going, wow, this could have been mine. If I don't change my life, this could be my funeral. And part of me is like, oh, I wonder who would come and what would they say? But I didn't want my kids at my funeral. I didn't want my mum at my funeral. I didn't want that. So that was the wake-up call that I needed. So I went back to work and I said, you know what? I need to take an extended amount of time off work, because if I don't, I'm going to either end up back in hospital or I'm going to end up dead. Yep. And I had really no idea what I was going to do. I just knew that I needed to step away for a period of time. So I took about 6 weeks off. And during this time, and for the 6 months prior, I'd also been working with a psychotherapist and a counselor and trying to really figure out what it was, because I knew that it wasn't just work. Sure, yes, I was working, like a 60-hour week was a quiet week. And there was a lot of stress and there was a lot of pressure and there's a lot going on with my children as well. And it was COVID and all the rest of it. But I just knew that there was more to it than just work. So I was desperate. Like, you could have come to me with the most crazy suggestion and told me that this will help you be better, and I would have signed up and gone, let's do it, because I was so desperate to try anything. So I came across, an organization or a course that I could do that was all about spirituality and mindfulness and meditation. And I thought, you know what, nothing else is working. I still think it's a heap of shit, but I'm going to give it a go. So I went into this, started to do this course, really, really cynical. But I thought, you know what? I'd paid like $10,000 for this course. I was also prepared to spend whatever it took to be better. So I'm like, well, no, Margaret, you've spent a lot of money on this course. You're damn well going to do it. And so I went, okay, let's do this. And I started to learn about, what spirituality could actually mean. I learned that I could meditate and that it was actually kind of helpful and not stupid and a waste of time. And I learned a little bit about breathing. And I learned about my inner child and who she is, which is who I am, and how I could go back and talk to her and connect with her. And I just started to get this nagging sense that everything that I needed to be well was actually already inside of me. And I could actually stop looking outside at all of these fads and courses and programs and shit, the media. See, this is the thing that we fall for. The media, and especially for women, I don't know what it's like for men because I'm a woman, but as a woman, we are always told you're not enough. You need this cream, this potion, this serum, this lipstick, this makeup, this clothing, this thing that pushes your tits up and sucks your tummy in. And if you don't have all of that, you're not enough. And we get fed this, and our children get fed this, that you are not enough. You're not pretty enough, smart enough, skinny enough, brave enough, just not enough. And I started to go, what if I am enough? I just got this sense. And then you have these conversations. I love talking to myself. And in my time off, I would sit for hours on end and just journal. So my love of English and writing started to come back out again. And I would just write and write and write pages. And I don't even know where this stuff came from. And half the time I was just coming up with more questions than I was answers. And it was just this stream of consciousness stuff that was coming out. And it was just this sense of a couple of things. One was that I'm destined for greatness. I'm like, there is some kind of greatness, Margaret, that you are called to. And I'd always thought, well, of course, that's to be like a CEO and have this amazing career and, earn all of this money. So I'm like, yeah, I'm on track for my greatness because, I'm nailing life. But this nagging feeling said, no, there's something else. There's something else that is your greatness. And the other thing was just shut up. Turn everything else off around you and keep looking within, because everything that you need, you already are. And I remember one of the things that hit me one day, and I thought, wow, because I've always had a healthy ego, right? The line of work that I used to be in, I was like the best in what I did. So I've always had a very healthy ego. Ego is not a dirty word as far as I was concerned. And then I come up with this thing that I'm doing this journaling one day and I'm like, do you know what? I am my own God. And I'm like, how out of control is your ego, girl? Like, seriously, you're your own God? And then I'm like, well, what is God? Because I had all of this Catholicism. This was my upbringing. God is this deity and it's this external thing, and Jesus on a cross and all the rest of it. But I'm like, what if I put that religious connotation of godliness to one side and I consider whether I am all that I need, which means I am all. And I'm like, you know what? You have these things and they go round and round in your head, and then you just, I've got some amazing people in my life that I met that I could get on a phone call with and go, do you know what? I've just decided I'm my own God. What do you reckon about that? And we could have these random conversations. And I had those random conversations. I answered my own questions. I convened with some really amazing people who shed even more light for me on it. I did my shadow work. I did my dangly bits work. I did my inner child work. And I got to the heart of why I got burnt out. And the reason I got burnt out was never about the job. I could have been in any job and I eventually would have ended up burnt out again and again and again. My burnout was because I did not believe I was worthy of love and approval and acceptance. And so I just kept striving. I believed, I half jokingly say this, but it's true. Like, I had mummy issues with my CEO. I'd spent my entire life trying to win my mother's approval and never succeeding with that. So my CEO was like my stand-in mother figure who, when I was doing really well with my job and she was like, oh, Margaret, you're so awesome. You're so awesome. Like I was the golden child. Then I was okay. So when I was doing well and I was succeeding at work, I was okay. When my children were doing really well, so pre-COVID, my kids were like state level athletics and winning stuff at life-saving athletics championships. And I could get on Facebook and brag like crazy about how freaking awesome my children were. And that was a sign of what an awesome mother I was.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
But suddenly, there's no sporting activities because, hello, COVID, like the world just stopped, right? And, both of my children have, over the last several years, gone through some pretty big mental health challenges of their own. And that's come with some pretty confronting stuff that we've all had to deal with. Probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do is leave one of my children behind at a mental health facility and walk away and leave him there, but it was either that or plan his funeral within days. And even when things weren't going well, this is the beauty of social media and having a family 2 states away, right? Like you can just only show people what serves your narrative.
Yes.
Yeah. And then everybody buys into it, and then you buy into your own shit as well. But then, right, you've got this veneer of fabulousness and perfection that we put out there. And I see it on social media all the time of here's my holiday and here's my car and here's my house and here's my kids and here's my weekend and here's my coffee and here's my, my dog. And I could do that. I was doing that. But on the other side, life was really, really hard. And it was challenging, and we had mental health battles and we had stuff going on. And so when COVID came and COVID took away the athletics and the life-saving and all of the activity, and suddenly I'm like, shit, I got nothing good to talk about with my kids going on here. And my life suddenly got less interesting. So I started to go, well, and then at work, I went from being the golden child who was smashing every target and doing great things. Like it got hard, and then I wasn't making targets. And stuff was hard. And so suddenly I'm not doing any good at work. I'm failing at work. Not perfect. I'm failing mothering. And I have a wonderful partner. He lives in his house. I live in my house. We've been doing this for 7.5 years. I love him to pieces. He is the most beautiful, beautiful human being on the planet. But I'd always said, like, I suck at marriage, I suck at relationships, so I'm just going to be good at work and good at mothering. And then suddenly I wasn't good at work and I wasn't good at mothering. So I was like, oh my God, what am I actually good at? I'm no good at anything. And so the depression kicked in, the anxiety kicked in, and it overwhelmed me. But when I realized that perfection, like if I'm perfect and I can portray this perfect life, I'll be accepted, I'll be approved of, I'll be loved, I could go, oh, that's what it is. But coming to the realization that you lack self-worth. And I remember the day when I was doing some work around self-love. And I always be like, well, of course I love myself. I mean, what's not to love, right? Like, And the realization that I didn't think that ever in my life I could honestly say that I had known true unconditional love in my life. That like I remember just sitting there and bawling like a baby to go, you don't actually know what love is. I don't know that I've ever experienced true unconditional love in my life. And then the realization that until I could give that to myself, that even if others were giving it to me, I would never recognize it. And it would never be enough, and you just lean in and you do the work and you go through all the ugly bits and you confront all of the stuff that you don't want to confront. And even when you think you've dealt with it all, you go deal with it again and you find some more stuff and you find some more stuff. And then something triggers you and you're like, well, fuck me. I thought I was done with that. And there it is again. And I did all of this. And then I went back to work. So I did this for like 6 to 8 weeks, not being at work. I did all of this. I just like literally immersed myself. People were like, how are you changing your life so fast? I'm like, I am living and breathing and sleeping this 24/7. I am like fast tracking my way on this because I do not want to die. I could not really express to anybody the sense of urgency that I had. So anyway, I got well enough and I ran out of sick leave. I had to go back to work. We got bills to pay. And I went back to work and, they were super great in trying to accommodate me and had a bit of a restructure so that I had, less responsibilities and less staff. They were great with that. But I couldn't do it. I think I'd been back at work like not even 3 months.
Yeah.
And I rang the CEO and I said, I'm resigning. Here is my resignation. And I am going to go and start my own business. And I'm going to help other women and other people to never feel what I've been feeling and what I've been experiencing. Or if they're there, I'm going to hold space for them and I'm going to help them to go and find themselves. And so I did. So I quit my job. I walked away from everything I thought I had ever wanted, the title, the money, the career, the everything. And I had these moments of going, what the hell are you doing? Are you mad? I had people say that to me. Are you mad? Do you have any idea what you're doing? Or you say the money doesn't matter until you run out of it. And I went, you know what? I've got money in the bank. This is my life savings. I have to do this because, the thing is, once you scratch the surface and you peel the layer back, you can't stick it back down again or it never goes. Those peely things, like you buy something from the supermarket, it's like, peel here, it's peel and reseal. Yep. And it never reseals like it did.
Ever.
That's what this was like. I peeled it up and I went, ooh, and I put it back down and then I went up. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't unsee it and I couldn't unfeel it. And then the nagging and that voice just got stronger and stronger and stronger until one day I just went, I'm doing it. I'm quitting. I'm going. I'm starting my own business. I'm working with women and I'm going to commit my life to changing other people's lives. And I still unfortunately had to work for another couple of months. It was the world's longest notice period. But so in January, it was really January this year, I started Queen of My Own Universe, with a vengeance, and it has been just such a roller coaster ride. I don't even recognize old me anymore. I look back at even just photos of myself from that time, and I realize how sick and empty I looked. And I am just so freaking high on life every single day. I now feel like I'm one of those really annoying people. Like, I reckon you and I could piss off a lot of people together, Scott. I've just been so freaking happy all the time.
It does annoy people at times. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've literally been attacked for being happy. That was at 7 o'clock in the morning on a run, dead set. And it was the most interesting situation I've ever had. Well, here I am running along Beach Road, and guys looked at me and goes, "You can't be that happy." Actually, I am. I am that happy. No, you can't be that happy. And he wanted to have an argument with me. And I'm like, I'm happy to go there. Like, let's find out what's hurting you so much that me running past you is annoying you. But unfortunately, I was with somebody else who was actually uncomfortable with the confrontation.
Yeah.
So I didn't get the opportunity to embrace that confrontation, because that confrontation for me is exactly what I want to have if that's the scenario. Because what's it bringing up for you, mate? Let's share it with me. Because let's open up that sticky, peel it back and see what's underneath. Because over time it'll keep coming, and you'll have to keep looking. You'll get there eventually. So the queen of my own universe. What's that doing right now? What are you doing with it? You've got a tribe. You're building a community.
I am. We're changing lives. One woman at a time. So when I first started Queen of My Own Universe, I thought that it was just going to be one-on-one coaching. That I would sit down with women and we would do this stuff and we would work together. And I love doing that. I absolutely do love doing it. But I got impatient, which is not surprising because that's a tendency of mine. But the impatience was that, I want to make a big impact in the world. And I cannot do that fast enough, one woman at a time, because I know there's a hell of a lot of women out there that I wanted to get to. So it's sort of like, right, let's do the stuff on Facebook. Let's see, I started to create some of my own content, put my own material out there, the world according to Margaret. What does it mean to be the queen of your own universe? Because I see a lot of other people, posting other people's stuff. And I was sort of like, that's not quite, I've got this voice and it needs to be heard. And I think I've got this unique perspective that other people are going to relate to. So I'm going to create my own stuff. And if it resonates, it does. And if it doesn't, well, hey, at least I'm being authentic to myself. But one of the things that I really, really wanted to do was to take all of this spirituality, like all this woo-woo stuff, right, that I once upon a time thought was absolute hippy-dippy, loopy-la-la bullshit. I thought that if in order to be spiritual and, I needed to have, a massive collection of crystals, and I needed to sit cross-legged and meditate for half an hour and chant and, wear long flowy dresses and not shave my legs. Like, I thought that that's what I had to be. And, I have a small collection of crystals, and that's about as far as that is. But I'm a deeply, deeply spiritual person without all of the other stuff that goes with it. And what I realized was that the spiritual community, in inverted commas, there's a perception about it, which is kind of what I just described, right? Which alienates everyday people. And my experience had been, it was scary and weird, and you people are freaking me out, and it was expensive to start to learn about and really start to make these changes in your life. So I'm like, what if I could take all of the woo-woo out? So I'm going to be a woo-woo free zone. We're going to talk in simple, plain English, because that's what Margaret does. And we're going to make this relatable and mainstream so that every normal person, every normal woman can get it. I'm going to lead with my story. You know what? I've lived a colourful life. If we went into all of the details, which one day I will in a book, like it'd make your hair stand on end. But there's enough of, divorce, relationship problems, cheating husbands, mental illness, kids, blah, 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 that I've, haven't come across a lot of women who don't go, oh yeah, I can relate to that. So how do I take my story, take spirituality, weave them in together, make it relatable and in a bullshit-free zone, and make it affordable and accessible to as many people as possible? So I started, putting stuff up on Facebook, and people started sort of, buying into it and then sharing it with their friends and commenting on it and doing all sorts of things. And then I thought, well, I'll start a women's circle, because I'd been part of a women's circle previously and I absolutely loved the experience. So I thought, you know what, shits and giggles, I'll start a women's circle.
Yeah.
We'll do that. And so I went off and I trained as a women's circle facilitator, and I started a women's circle here in Frankston South in person at the start of this year. And that sold out. 10 women. It was great. It took a little while to build up, and then I thought, okay, well, I'll start another one, because people were like, can I come? And I'm like, no, I want to keep these nice and small. They're not big events. So I started another women's circle, and in Patterson Lakes, 10 women, advertised it on Facebook in a couple of mums groups, and it sold out in a week and a half. I went, okay, all right, there's something in this women's circle stuff. So now I've got them in Frankston South, Patterson Lakes, and a couple in Mount Martha as well. And it's every 2 weeks. And they're not, there are some beautiful women's circles, very spiritual, and I love going to those for myself, but that's not what I wanted to do with Queen of My Own Universe. So we get together every 2 weeks. You know what? We meditate, we talk about menopause, if that's what they want to talk about. We talk about whatever they want to talk about, because it's their space. So it's all about connecting back into your community. There's so many people, Scott, and you would come across this, that are so freaking lonely.
Yes.
And they're so scared now to come back out of their shells after COVID. Like, the social anxiety and the isolation, I think, is the cruelest thing about lockdown. And so to give these women a safe space, where for some of them, this was the first thing that they've done outside their house in years.
Yeah.
And they come and they turn up and they meet with a group of women that they have never, ever met before. And they share. And they tell a story. They tell what is going on in their lives. They cry and they laugh, and they just feel so safe to talk about what's happening in their life. So I love the women's circles that we do. We've got a big event coming up at the end of October at the Brahma Kumara Centre. It's Queen for a Day. The other lovely thing about, the work that I'm doing is I'm finding all these other fabulous practitioners, small business women as well, doing incredible work. And so we're bringing a whole stack of them together. I've got this beautiful lady called Becky who's coming to do a yoga session, but it's a beautiful, inclusive, gentle yoga style that, you can do it sitting down if you want to, which sounds like my kind of yoga, to be honest. And then we've got different practitioners, so people can choose to go, I want to go and learn about tapping. I want to learn about energy healing. I want to learn about how to set boundaries in my life. I want to learn more about self-care. So they can choose to go to a session with one of these fabulous practitioners. And then I'm going to run a vision board workshop, which is something I do quite often. I love a good vision board. So we're going to create vision boards. And then we're going to have a mass women's circle and some sound healing. And it's just going to be the most beautiful day. And I can't wait for that to happen. What else are we doing? We're doing online coaching programs. I co-authored in a book that came out a couple of weeks ago called Goodbye Busy, Hello Happy, where I talk about my 7 steps for living a happy life. I'm speaking at conferences. You know what? I've got a client in Brazil. We're going global with Queen of My Own Universe. It's amazing. I've got this young woman in Brazil as a coaching client. And I'm like, how did you even find Queen of My Own Universe? And she goes, a friend of mine wrote something on Facebook and there you were. And, we've got a podcast. We've got a fabulous podcast called Living the Queen Life. And man, we have some conversations on that. I find these incredible women from all walks of life, and they're either coming on and telling their personal story, you know, and it might be, childhood sexual abuse, which then, you know, for one woman turned into, you know, drug and alcohol addiction. She was in rehab by the time she was 23. And, you know, now 25 years later, you know, and I've got to post her stuff up, you know, she's posting on Facebook this morning. She's currently in Italy at the Life Saving World Championships. So shout out to the fabulous Caroline Bellinger. She's coming home with 2 gold medals and a bronze medal from the Life Saving World Championships after recovering from, you know, being a recovering alcoholic from her early 20s. You know, it's like these phenomenal women. And then there's other women who have created businesses for women to overcome their own problems, you know. So we have a conversation about, and I'm sorry if I'm going to make you blush, we have recorded podcasts about menopause and our intimate dryness and the products we can use for that. And there was an episode came out last week with Susan the Sex Maven.
Yeah.
And
Brilliant.
we're talking about sex, and we're talking about masturbation, and we're talking about sex toys and sex positivity for women over 50, because apparently when you turn 50, you're not supposed to like sex anymore. And over my dead body, that can't happen. But you know what I love, though, is we have these conversations. So I don't get embarrassed about very much in life anymore. I'm just being Marg. That's just who it is. But I feel like it's my responsibility to go and have these conversations that I know other women want to have, and they're not brave enough to do it for themselves.
Yes.
And then we have these conversations and we post these podcasts out, and then we start these conversations, because then they come to Women's Circle and we talk about that episode with Susan, the sex lady. Or they message me and go, oh my God, that was so good. Thank you so much for having these conversations. And then they tell their friends.
Yeah.
And I don't want them to tell their friends, because it's like, oh my God, Marg's podcast is so awesome. I want them to talk to their friends about this shit that they wouldn't talk to their friends about before. You know, we've just got to break down the walls about what it is okay to talk about, and just make it, I feel like I'm saying the word normal all the time. We have to normalize stuff that is taboo and comes with shame and comes with embarrassment, and just go, this is just part of being a human who's living a full life. And just go talk about it and live it. Like it's too cool. So if I'm going to put myself out there so that other people feel more comfortable, well, you know what? I've got a big enough shoulders. I can wear that. Not a problem. I'm having fun doing it. So that's what we're doing. We're helping people to figure out who they are, live happy lives, and get comfortable with what matters to them.
I love that. And I really applaud that, because for me, living an authentic life is so important. You know, like life is only a life if it's lived, right? And to live a life, you got to step up to the challenges. And some of the challenges of life are not pretty. Some of them are damn right ugly. But when we embrace them and go, okay, what can we learn from this? How do we get through this? Well, that's the liquid gold in life, you know, like it's, you know, you're talking about doing sound healings and yoga, and, you know, for some people that's out there. But I tell you what, I love a good sound healing. I love the opportunity of seeing a kinesiologist. I love the opportunity of having Reiki done. There's a beautiful woman by name of Jan Winsley down in Mount Martha, who I hold very dear in my heart, that if I'm having a lot of issues in my life, and regularly I take on a lot of stuff, no difference to you when you're taking on these challenges. And if I need to release that energy, I go and see Jan.
Yeah.
You know, I had Oscar come to a session with me where Jan was chanting and actually taking the energy, and I was just looking, what's going on here? But here's the thing, right? Like, I had no choice. He was with me, and we had to do it. But I'm happy to have him there, because I think in life we've gotten to this point as an existence, the human beings. Now we have to embrace the new challenges of what we can be. I think we're at the most exciting time in human existence right now. You know, we're really challenging who we are, instead of the indoctrinated, go to school,
Yes.
go to uni, get a
Mhm.
job, get married, have 3 kids. What is it we're really here for? What is it we really want? And I love the fact that you talked about, God, because it's an interesting one for me. Like I love listening to Wayne Dyer, and I love listening about the
Yes.
Tao and Taoism, and but for me, and I'm only referring to Oscar because I look at the way in which we are guiding each other and the way we learn, right? As a father to son, that it's an important relationship to me. And it's funny, I have some of my better conversations with him because he goes, Dad, look, I go to a religious school and you don't believe in God. I said, well, that's a good question. I said, because, well, it's more of a statement, but what is God? He goes, what is God to you, Dad? I said, well, what says you're not God? Guess what? So what says you're not God? I said, I'm probably the closest person to you. And I know a lot about you. Your mum knows a lot about you, but we don't know everything. We can never see life through your eyes. You're the only one that's ever going to see life through your eyes. What says you're not your own God? I just left it. He goes, mind blown. I said, listen, I don't want you to accept that as the answer. I want you to explore it. Go and find it. It's
Consider it, yeah.
not for me to tell you. It's for you to want to learn and understand. I said, but thank you so much for asking me the question. And it's what world can we create if we are living this authentic life? We are really challenging and supporting each other. Since you've started supporting other women by the Queen of My Own Universe, look at the connection inside you. I've seen photos from you in the past. You are glowing compared to what you used to look like. You're relaxed and enjoying it. So I really want to honor you for that because I think it's super important. And it's the background photo today, right? That's not an accident, right? Because I am really
None of them are my legs yet.
well, we've got to change that because
yes.
I'm lucky enough. You've all heard me talk about the cold water crazies. Love them to bits. They are people that I love, and I go to spend time with them for me as much as like I need to go for a swim sometimes for me to feel better about me. And these women love and honor me by just allowing me to be me in that moment, and I love that. But the thing I'm really proud of you for, Marg, is you and I caught up and had a bit of a yarn about how, what, where, why. And I said to you, let's go for a swim tomorrow morning. She goes, I've always seen those ladies. I've always wanted to do it. I said, well, let's not wonder anymore and let's get it done. And you stepped up to the challenge, right? You got uncomfortable. You are comfortable with being uncomfortable. For me, that is the key to life. When you become comfortable with being uncomfortable, boom. It's a whole new array of living. And in that being uncomfortable, it's having those conversations about menopause, about being dry, about sex over 50s. What can we do better? How can we get more enjoyment out of it? Because it's bloody important, self-worth in those moments. Sex is a big part of life, right?
Yeah.
If you enjoy that and you enjoy the intimacy and you know your body, you can relax more. You can enjoy it more, right?
Yeah.
And that is such an important part. And I love the fact that you're having those conversations like inside the Campfire Project. For the last 3.5, 4 years, we've been having big conversations consistently.
Yeah.
And they are wonderful because there's, for whatever I'll take the criticism, I don't believe there's wrong and right. Right? I believe there's been experiences that we need to do better. But we've had those experiences, so let's take the lessons from them and improve ourselves. Yeah, because I don't know anybody that's made a decision to make the wrong decision ever.
No, nobody goes, oh, I think I'll make a really shit decision today. Yeah.
No, 100%. So if we embrace that, right, and we go to understanding and curiosity as to why that decision was made, and then challenge the reasons behind that, and that's tough on situations like murder and sexual assault and all these things. It's tough, but how do we get beyond it? if we don't, because yeah, I'm going to head down a rabbit warren if we go down that road, because
But
most.
I agree with you on that entirely, and I think it's the thing to do, when it is big topics, right?
Yeah.
And even the small ones, is to evaluate an experience or a situation as objectively as you can. Because what our mind naturally does, what we tend to do and what we've been taught to do and conditioned to do is apply judgment. It's good or bad, it's right or wrong. Instead of just going, that's a thing that happened, right? I'm not deciding if it's right or wrong. I'm just observing it as something that happened, an experience that I had. How did it make me feel? How am I feeling as a result of that? Do I like that feeling? No. I can make an assessment on my feelings. Now I'm assessing. I'm still not judging. It's about how do I put judgment aside? How do I go, how does that feel? Does it sit well in my body, or does it not feel comfortable in my body? It doesn't feel comfortable. Okay. What can I reflect on? What do I think triggered that for me? I find almost everything that triggers for people when they react in a way. I put a post up on this exactly this thing this morning. Actually, I'm like, why is this familiar to me? I feel like I've talked about this today. It's about how can I reflect, right? So when we have a response to something, when we have a reaction to something, what's at the heart of it most often is an unmet childhood need. And what there's a wound inside of us that causes us to have this visceral reaction, which is usually out of a place of fear, because there's something that's unmet and unhealed inside of us. And then what we tend to do is, after we've had that reaction, which is usually not a good one, then we can go into this phase of self-loathing and regret and even shame about, I'm so ashamed of how I reacted. I wish I hadn't done that. I'm so useless. I'm this, I'm that. And the self-loathing shit that we can come up with is really, really hurtful. But what if instead we went, you know what? Yeah, I didn't handle that as well as I would have liked to have. Let me go and see what I can learn from it. Let me go and understand what it is that I'm missing in my life right now, that I'm seeking as a result of that. Let me just accept that I didn't cover myself in glory with that reaction, but it's done. I can't take it back. I would say to people, sometimes you just got to let stuff go. I remember when people would say to me, I was dealing with some, big capital T trauma stuff from my childhood. You've got to let it go. You've got to forgive. And I thought that letting something go or forgiving meant giving that person a pass for that shitty thing they'd done to me. Like in me letting it go or forgiving, am I saying it's okay when it's not bloody okay? And instead being able to go, it's not okay, but it happened. I can't change it. And so therefore I just have to let it go. Like the freedom that comes in letting stuff go without any judgment is incredibly powerful. But then how can I reframe it? How can I go, that did not go the way that I wish it had, but I'm going to treat that as a learning experience. I'm going to do better next time out of this. And so we go from being a reactor to being a responder, which empowers us to then be able to go, I can do it differently next time. And to be able to, just take a breath. Just take a breath, people. Like, just stop for a minute. So your dude on that path who got shitty with you because you smiled at him at 7 o'clock in the morning, like, I would just want to sit him down and go, let's talk about your unmet childhood needs, darling, and see which one it is that made you respond like that.
Yeah, and that's where it's at, right? Because for me, that pain, there's always a reason behind that pain,
yes,
right? And that unmet need, that issue that's sitting thick within there, in here, that's not collecting rent. The thoughts that are just juggling around, it's interesting because it's life these days is so complex, and I think that there's so many things going on for people that we just don't take the time to explore the things we need to explore. I
Yeah.
think that's the key. Like if we were talking about it earlier, I was doing a podcast with Mick and talking about, if you don't make time for your wellness, you're going to make time. You'll be forced to make time for your
Yeah.
sickness, and
Yes.
your wellness encompasses so many different opportunities. And I think
Mhm.
the one thing that I have learned in life more than anything else is to have a crack at things,
Yes.
right? Listen to that inner voice. Like that was something
Mhm.
that I really enjoyed hearing about you earlier is that inner voice going for you, because one of the greatest things I've ever done was learn about intuition,
Yes.
and
Yes.
I've fully embraced that. We're having a big night in Frankston at the end of
Mhm.
November on a Wednesday night. We're going to have a
Mhm.
documentary about intuition, and we're going to talk about it. And
Amazing.
hopefully, Bill will come down for that. It's a fundraiser for the Business of Smiles. We're going to be,
Yes.
we'll have drinks and canapes, and do it really well. But we're going to
Fabulous.
talk
Yeah.
about intuition, because that inner voice, that knowing, that gut
Mhm.
feeling, that what is that? And I think it's
Yeah.
really a big time to embrace that right now, because just after COVID, so many people have that voice inside, and
Mhm. Mhm.
spirituality. Like I love it. People who see Shorty and I here all the time, we're two guys that, realistically in the world of life, we may have missed each other, the blue collar and the white collar worker. We sit here and we tell each other that we love each other. We're
Mhm.
very
I love it.
spiritual. We're very
Yeah.
spiritual men. We're spiritual in the aspect of the human spirit. I love the human spirit. The
Mhm.
human spirit to me is one of the most fascinating and amazing things. Humanity for
Mhm.
me is wonderful.
Mhm.
That's spirituality. Like it is to you what it is to you. But I
Mhm.
just challenge you to try things. Like one of the things that I'm really looking forward to. There's a gentleman that I'll be going to spend some time in a mosque, because I know nothing
Wow. Yeah.
about the Muslim culture. So I want to go and spend some time in a mosque and learn about the Muslim, the Quran, and understand
Mhm.
more about the culture, so that I can make smarter decisions for me. Because one of the things that
Mhm.
I found out, and when they pray 5 times a day, right? They 5 times a day they face Mecca and clear their heads and focus on their
Mhm.
intentions. Like,
Yeah.
imagine a world. It doesn't matter what religion you are. That's actually
Yeah.
it's 5 times a day chooses to focus on their intentions for the day.
Yeah.
How much of a difference would that make in the world? And
Yeah.
I'm not, it's I love it. I'm a meditator myself. I do not miss a night without meditation.
Mhm.
Oscar and I, will meditate before he goes to bed. I think it's wonderful.
Love
Yeah,
it.
I
Yeah.
love the world in which we're creating. Like we're well over time, and I really don't care too much tonight. But it's because it's these kinds of conversations. If we take the time to listen to them, it gives us the
Mhm.
opportunity to just challenge things. And when we challenge things, it's not an external battle that we're trying to fight. Challenge
No.
the internal, right? And
Mhm.
I don't know about you, Mark, but if I listen to Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror now, I have a whole
Mhm.
different view on that.
Mm. Yeah.
Looking in that mirror, who am I? What am I doing? What are the questions I need to ask? Like it's
Mhm.
just finding you. And
Yeah.
I love it. And I'm so grateful that you have, and you're still exploring that. And while you're building a tribe to take it with you. So, Marg, thank you. Yeah. Thank you for
Yeah.
really
Thank
challenging
you.
life, and and especially getting
It's
out there with the girls
look, I am gonna go back and do it again soon.
when you get there.
That that was just such an important thing for me to do, to,
Yeah.
literally walk my own talk, get out of my own way, stop lying to myself,
Boom.
and just go, "No, you've been called to do it." You talk about intuition.
Yeah.
Your intuition is just your higher self, And, I chatted with an alignment coach the other day. I've got a podcast episode coming out tomorrow with this. She's an alignment coach. And what she says is that alignment is when your inner child and your current day self and your higher self are all fully in alignment with each other. That's when you get to like full joy. Now, what we tend to do is we live in our current self, which is the one with all of the conditioning. We rubbish the idea of having an inner child, and we've got no idea what the higher self means because we're just like not in tune with that. But it's all like my inner child said, Margaret, go and have some fun. And my higher self went, well, hang on a second. What happened to I'm being Margaret and I'm being authentic? Because my current self got in my own way. But when I shut my current self down, the one with all the conditioning and the baggage and the stuff that she's still dealing with, and I let the real versions of myself speak, they went, get in the water, girl. You know you want to. Just go get in the water, have some fun. And it was just the most joyous experience, and the empowerment that I felt because I got out of my own frigging way and I got in the damn water, and like it was just, and I just want that for everybody. I want everybody. It's kind of, you see those people are like, whatever they're having, I'll have that.
Yeah.
Like, and people are now like, whatever you're on, I want some. And I'm like, I'm on life, literally. I'm that annoying person that's high on life, that my life is not perfect and there are still challenges, but I'm choosing happy. I'm choosing myself. I'm just choosing life every single day. And man, it's the best feeling.
Choosing happy. I think that in itself is something that we can all do a little bit more of, choose to be happy in a moment. And it makes a significant difference. So,
yes.
Yeah. Marg, this has been awesome. It's been interesting because I've been able to just sit back and listen for a change and just take notes. And if you, like you talked about the fact that you wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. I mean, we have pens for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
We gift out pens because pens are so important, to touch. Your story is the most important story that you'll ever write, and it's the most important thing you'll ever gift yourself, just owning it.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yep. So true.
So I want to thank you for tonight. I really want to thank you for sharing you, and I've enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for creating this space for people so that we get to have a voice, and you touch so many people's lives in ways that I know you know some of it, but you probably don't even know the half of it, and it's that ripple effect of you turned up, you told me your story, you gave me a pair of socks, pebble dropped in ocean, and now look what happens. So don't stop dropping the pebbles, my love. We're going to get you those socks you need.
Thank you, because I appreciate that, because when you feel the socks, they're not like it's funny, right? Just quickly, we talk about the socks, right? We charge $20 a pair. They cost us $10, but how good are the socks? Like
the quality is phenomenal, and they're so comfortable. They're so good.
And that's the thing, right? Because one of the things in life that's super important to me, and when we sat down and looked at the opportunities around this, and I did a thing about it the other day, is if I don't give you something of quality, I'm not valuing you. As it's a lot harder for me to be able to get to that, to give it to you, but the actual opportunity. Hey, Lisa, how are you? So. I think, have you met Lisa yet? Don't worry, you will.
Only online, not in person. Hey, Lisa.
Just wait. There's a gorgeous human right there.
Yes.
And but the quality of something you gift to somebody it's no different if you're doing a workshop, you're doing a presentation. The quality you give somebody, it's lasting and they feel special. And giving quality over quantity for me is everything, and that's why we're actually focusing on Frankston, which is a big thing, which I can't wait to sort of announce over the next week. I cannot wait to get this up and running, because it's going to be I want to change the world.
Yes.
I don't
Yes.
think that. I think we're at a point in time where we're ready to do something different. But I don't want to start with changing the world. I want to start with looking after my community. I want to go into my community and make sure my community is strong before I go anywhere. And
Yes.
my community is Frankston. I love the place. I love the people. I love the what's there. I love the beach. I love the community groups.
Yes.
You know, the businesses that are trying to do things differently. I love them. So I can't wait to see what we're going to do there. And with your help too, Marg.
I'm all on board. I'm on board, my friend.
So, so beautiful. All right. Well, on that note, Marg, thank you so much for sharing your heart. And smilers, campers, LinkedIn unicorns, and just amazing human beings. Thank you all for listening. If we take the time to listen to one another, we all grow. 1 + 1 = 3. So thanks, Marg. Thanks, everybody. And we'll see you next week.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Bye.
Cheers. Hang on. Where's that?